All right, wake up, Pre-Health Sharks. It is time again for another edition of Wake Up, Pre-Health Sharks. As always, we have knowledge experts on hand to cover various pre-health topics. And today, we're going to be talking about a topic that gets everyone a little bit nervous on interviews. And so we have some pre-health tips on interviews, specifically to go into medical school, professional school, or even skills that you could use for job and internship applications. My name is Emilio Lorenzo. I'm the Associate Director of Employee Relations. I'm going to turn it over to our two other knowledge experts who will be joining and giving their insights for the day.
Thank you, Emilio. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Gabby Gross, and I'm an Edge Advisor in the Center for Academic and Professional Success.
Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal Alvarez, and I'm an Academic Advisor in the Center of Academic and Professional Success.
So we have some great knowledge experts and insights to share with you today. As I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about interview tips, but we're going to be going in depth on what you should be doing before the interview, that pre-interview.
I'm not worried about it. I'm really.
What you should be doing during the interview, specifically talking about some types of interviews that are a little bit new to individuals, but it's very common in medical school interviews, which are multiple mini interviews, MMI. We're going to be talking about the end and post interview, anywhere from thank you letters to following up, and then talking about our CAP services and ways that we can support you as you'd rather get the deer in the headlights look nervous with us in interviews, as opposed to that happening for the first time in front of a medical school representative. So a lot to cover today, but as always, we're here for you to be able to answer questions. If throughout the interview you have questions, or throughout the presentation you have any questions, please send it on a chat box, or we'll let you unmute yourself so you can be able to ask it to myself or one of our other knowledge experts.
So the first thing we're going to be covering is the pre-interview. So things that are going to be going on before, you're going to be thinking about, asking yourself. So one of the first things that you want to start doing while preparing for your interview is to start doing your research. Research the school, research the program, make sure you're interested in it. What are they looking for? What their mission is? Has that school been featured in the news lately? Do you have any questions that you may want to research a little bit more? Meet with an admissions counselor. So these are all things that you want to do before your interview. Not only are you going to understand the school a little bit better, but you're also going to feel more comfortable before going into your interview.
Perfect. I was going to add really quick too, that when it comes to like interviewing, a lot of students do their research, but they're not looking as much into like values and mission. I think it's really important to look at that, whether it's a school or like a company organization, because you want to see if those values and the mission aligns with what they value as well, because you're not only, being interviewed, you're actually interviewing them as well to see if they're a good fit for you.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think the more research you do by visiting their website, you might learn something unique that program does, being like, hey, I realized that you guys do dental mission trips with students also in the pharmacy school. Now, can you tell me more about that? These type of questions show them that you've done your homework, but when they start asking you, well, why do you think you're a good fit? By you being able to refer to the values, the mission, or other things that either company or grad program represents, it's going to really make your answer stand out, because if not, it's going to sound more generic. Well, I want to help others, or your organization is very positive, things that are very generalities, as opposed to being able to be specific as to why they're a good fit. And it shows that you've done your homework.
So the next thing that you should be looking forward to is your in-person success. So now a lot of interviews are being done over Zoom, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be prepared just as you were in person. So you want to make sure that you're giving a great first impression. So you're wearing the proper attire. You're not just wearing a t-shirt. So here there's actually a photo of some samples of things that you should be wearing. Oh, sorry, I thought Gabby was saying something. You also want to make sure that your social media accounts are clean. So if your social media accounts are public, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, you want to make sure that you don't have anything posted that you wouldn't want any professional. So whether it be a graduate school or a job that you're trying to interview for, if you don't want them to see it, make sure it's not on there. I would say put everything private, but even if it's private, make sure it's clean. You should also have multiple copies of your resumes with you. So if you're attending an in-person interview, have a few copies in a folder, be prepared. You never know how many people will be there during the interview, and you want to make sure that each one of them has a copy and is able to go through your entire resume while you're speaking. It's also great to take a notebook with you to take notes during the interview. Perhaps you want to write down some questions that you would like to ask them that you still are unsure of. It's just best to be prepared so you don't have to ask them during the interview, do you have a paper or a pen that I could write with? It's just more professional. You should be arriving 15 minutes early. I wouldn't say any more than 15 minutes. You don't want to get there 30, 40 minutes early, but I think 15 minutes early is good. You never know if you're not going to find the location where you need to be to. It's also very professional, just to show that you're prompt with your time. It's always better to be a little bit early than getting there late. And lastly, you want to turn off your cell phone. Just like if you were in class or in an in-person interview, whether you're on Zoom, make sure that your cell phone is turned off or in silent and not in front of you where you could lose some of your distraction or anything like that.
Really good tips, Crystal. I think even because turning it off is so important. I know many people, they go for an interview, whether for grad program or a job or an internship, and then they're like, oh, they're running a little bit behind. Would you mind waiting in the lobby? Then you start playing Candy Crush or texting on your phone, and you're being interviewed the moment you walk into that building, and you're being evaluated. And it's best not to have that distraction at all, even the temptation of that distraction.
Virtual success. So right now, this is exactly what we're focusing on and what we're relying on. Technology. So a lot, like I said, a lot of interviews are taking place via Zoom or any other application that they may be using. You want to make sure that your technology is working before your interview. So even though you may say, okay, well, all my classes are already on Zoom, I know my Zoom is working, double check it, triple check it. You don't want to be signing on to your Zoom interview and notice that your camera stopped working or that they can't hear you with the volume. It's always better to be sure and to have everything working. Any files that you may need up, make sure that you have all of those up and running, so you're not in the middle of your interview and trying to look things up. And have a clean desk in front of you wherever it is that you're working. Make sure you're clear, like I said, of distraction. Close any other apps that you may have on your computer, and make sure your sole focus is on the interview. Setting the stage. So this ties a little bit with what I'm saying. Make sure you're clear of distractions. If you're not able to have a virtual background, make sure the location that you're at, you don't have people walking in and out behind the door or someone coming in to talk to you. Make sure there's good lighting, that they could really see your face and they could really hear what you're saying. Turn off notifications. So don't have your emails open where there's constant notifications or noise in the background. And like I said, taking notes is very encouraged, but you want to let them know that you're taking notes beforehand. So you don't want to just be jotting down and they think that you're not paying attention or not giving 100% of your time to them. So just let them know, hey, during our interview, I will be taking some notes if that's okay. I also have some notes here that I would like to ask at the end of our interview.
All right. Thank you, Crystal, for all of those pre-interview tips. Now we're going to go into a little bit more about talking about what happens during the interview and what you should expect and prepare for. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is selling yourself. The first thing here that shows is listen. This is my favorite one by far, because a few years back, I remember I had a mentor tell me when I was talking about interviewing with them that there's a difference between listening and hearing. Like there's a very big difference. listening is more intentional. So when you're going into an interview and an individual and the interviewee is asking you questions, it's really important to listen to the question. So you're more than welcome to, before you answer, make sure that you understand what they say. You're more than welcome to ask them to repeat the question. I know I've done that in interviews before. I'm sure other people have. That way you ensure you're paying attention to the question, you know exactly what they're asking for. Sharing examples as well is one of the best ways to sell yourself. So be prepared to share examples about projects that you've worked on, maybe shadowing that you've been involved with, research, anything that's really relevant to what you're interviewing for, whether that be a medical school program, dental school program, internship. It really doesn't matter. Just have those examples prepared and ready to go. And then building rapport is also really important. First impressions are very, very important. And that really starts how you build a rapport with the interviewees. So be aware of your body language, whether it's over Zoom or it's in person. That's really important. And always just have an attitude of openness, and that you're open to hearing what they have to say, that you're confident and enthusiastic about that position or that graduate program without coming off as too much. You know, I think in an interview, sometimes you have to draw the line between sharing too much of yourself and then also being open and confident. And we as advisors can always help you with practicing that. And then always having like common courtesy and respect for the interviews as well, because that really shows a lot about you and who you are as a student too.
Really good tips. And I love the sharing examples. To me, storytelling is the best way to stand out amongst interviews. Everyone could say that they're excited. Everyone could say that they're passionate about healthcare, but it's the stories that you have that can help really deliver and show, instead of just tell them these passions or these fit type of answers.
Exactly.
And I think that's great, since you're going to be going off of your resume. They see what you've done, but giving examples. So tell them, go into more detail of what exactly you've done, what population you've worked with, what you did in that job exactly. Like Emilio said, storytell. The more that they know, the more intrigued they're going to be, and the more it's going to give a positive impact on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I like that, Crystal, like the populations also you're working with. Just give those specifics for sure, and don't forget that when going into an interview. What we have up here, just some types of questions to expect, whether that be for a graduate program, internship, or anything that you're really applying to. First off, straightforward answers, or straightforward questions, excuse me, you'll be asked. So things like, what are positive qualities about you? What are your shortcomings, strengths, and weaknesses? Things that you should be able to answer, very straightforward. And there are going to be some other questions, such as behavioral questions. So these type of questions really help show the interviewer about yourself, how you would maybe react or pass actions in a specific situation, or how you react in the future. So these are really important, especially in those graduate school interviews, such as medical school, dental, PA, whatever you're going towards. Behavioral are big. Same thing with situational, because they're really wanting to see here how you would react to a specific situation as well, and how you would respond. This is huge in the medical field, because really that's what you're doing, is responding to, or pre-health field in general, responding to different situations with patients and etc. So really these two, the behavioral and situational, are huge when it comes to these type of interviews. So be expecting these. And then any questions about your skills, so showcasing skills, testing skills, and your ethical foundation. This is a huge one too. And I know, Emilio, we've talked about this before. A lot of different healthcare programs really like to ask questions and kind of sneak in those questions about how your ethical foundation is and what would you do in XYZ situation. And we here as advisors are more than happy to help you review these type of questions as well.
Some really, really good points, Gabby, in each one of these type of questions.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I know we had just shown just some specific questions, and really that list is not exhaustive. Like there's going to be way more questions than that you can expect, and us as advisors, like I said, can help you go over these type of questions. We do mock interviews, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on, but we also want to be able to share, you know, how to continue selling yourself, and really what is the best way to answer some of these questions. Just like we use with resumes and bullet points in our resumes, we like to use something called the STAR method. So STAR stands for different things. The S stands for situation, the T stands for task, the A stands for action, and the R stands for results. So how it works is if they ask a question to you where you need to explain a specific situation or behavior, you can always start by describing that situation, describing maybe the issue you were a part of, or the background of the situation or issue. Then you can describe the task. So what were you tasked with in that situation? Really, what was the goal you were working towards? The next thing you can do is then describe the action that you took to solve that task. So really, what steps did you take to move forward to solving that task? What kind of tools did you use? Were you part of a group? Were you solo? Just giving those details, and then explaining the results. So the results is huge because that really helps to quantify what you're doing, show the accomplishments, show how you solve that task, and then you go from there. So this is a way, we always bring up this way in bullet points on resumes, but it's the same kind of method that you can use for interviews as well when they have questions that this can be used towards. So yeah, we just wanted to bring this up.
So the other type of interviews, so interviews can come in a lot of forms. There's going to be virtual interviews, in-person interviews, one-on-one in-person interviews, or even a panel of individuals interviewing. Those are very common. Now, one that has become more common and something that you'll see in MD or other types of medical schools is MMIs, which are multiple mini interviews. So in a traditional interview, you're meeting with the same folks for the entirety of the interview. And they might have a list of 10 to 12 questions to ask you. You're able to build momentum in these. In an MMI, you walk into a room and sometimes the question is posted right outside the room. And when you come in, you're expected to answer that question. Sometimes it's not posted and that person that's in there will ask it of you, but you're only answering one question for one room. And so you deliver your answer, you leave, and then you go into another room where you're asked another question. So it's important to know in this one, you can't build that type of momentum. So you want to, just like another storytelling, but giving as many examples as possible, being able to be clear with your communication. They're trying to measure your fit, your not just cultural fit, fit for the program, the rigors of the program, your critical thinking, your ethics. They may ask you a very specific scenario to walk us through. They're trying to understand your experiences and really as a whole, how you would fit into that program and really being able to exceed the expectations in that program. So understanding that these could happen and they're like interview stations. Now, all the people that interview will talk to each other. So you want to make sure you're not using the same example for each person, but you want to make sure you're being as expanded and as detailed with your answers as possible. A sample, yeah, go, Krista, go for it.
I want to make sure it is important too that when you're asked a question, it's okay to stop, think of the question, and gather your thoughts of how you're going to respond, because you don't just want to respond right away and not have all your thoughts gathered. So it's okay to stop, think about the question that's being answered, or if you want more information on the question, or can you repeat yourself if you weren't sure exactly what they asked. So you're better prepared to answer the question, since in these small mini interviews, you're just answering one question. So you want to make sure that that answer is answered as best possible.
Absolutely. And an example of an MMI question, and this is a situational one, is imagine your best friend Jennifer calls you and tells you that she's been rejected for the third time from all medical schools she's applied to during the previous application cycle. She invites you over to her house to chat about her future, and then the interviewer is asking you to go inside the room and speak with Jennifer. So this is measuring, bedside manner in medical school or becoming a doctor is so important. Being able to communicate effectively, being able to use your reflective listening skills and help that person show an authentic side of yourself and that you understand them and counsel them can be so important. This question is really measuring in that. So you really not just need to get the theoretics of, oh, I would use listening skills, I would try to make her feel heard. Give examples of certain phrases you would use. How would you use communication? How would you empathize with that person? How would you make Jennifer feel okay? And also maybe giving her some tips on future success, on how she can, this will not define her. There's other ways that she's going to be able to reach her goals. So an MMI question, some of them are going to be very straightforward, but some of them are going to be very situational like this because they're trying to measure some of those soft skills that you need to become a successful doctor.
Amelia, I want to add that empathy is also huge when it comes to this. Any healthcare profession, you might be the one giving bad news. So they're really wanting to test your empathy and see how you can, really relate to the patient and give them, all the care that's needed during that time. So this is a perfect example. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit more about end and post interview and what to look forward to there. Okay, so this really is going to just discuss a little bit more about fit and questions. It's really important that you know that the interview really starts, yes, pre-interview, during the interview, but even after the interview, there's still certain things that you need to be doing. Learning about the program, we spoke about that. Crystal actually talked about it before as well. So learning about the program is super, super important. That way you understand if the program is a fit for you. You're not only being interviewed, you're also interviewing them to see if you'd be happy at that program, you'd be happy at the organization or in the internship. It really just depends on what you're looking for. Oh, Amelia, do you mind going back a slide?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I was
No problem.
Questions.
No problem. So yeah, like I said, learning about the organization just to make sure that they're a good fit and they have the same really values and they can really work to provide, everything necessary for you as a student or as an employee. And then being prepared to ask questions. So in an interview towards the end, you typically will always be asked if you have any questions for them. And this is so important to know that going into any interview, whether it be for a medical program, dental program, even an internship or job, you want to have questions prepared. This goes back to you being prepared in general because you want to know about that organization, but also going back to what I said, like you are also interviewing them. So you want to know a little bit more about the organization, or you should want to know more than really what you find on a website or on a social media page. Thoughtful questions always make you stand out. So, the more research that you do, the more thoughtful questions I feel like you can develop. Some sample questions are what opportunities are there for research? What kind of students do you have that are doing community service? I know we talked about mission, values, needs, really anything that it has to do with what you want to know, but also how you can relate back to that organization. So just keeping in mind that your fit is very important, and asking questions can really help you to determine if this is a program or an organization that you want to be a part of or work for. Ooh, Crystal, you're muted.
Sorry, thanks. So other things that you may want to do that are strongly encouraged after your interview is thank the interviewers at the end for giving the time to interview you. You might want to send an email, thank them in person, depending on how your interview is taking place. It's a good idea to ask for their business card to have that contact information. And you want to be sending that email 24 to 48 hours after. I know that I've done interviews for NSU, and when I get those thank you emails after, it really reminds me of the student. It just shows a lot about a student that they're thankful for the opportunity they have, and it reminds me, and it keeps their name in my head as well.
Yeah.
Something I want to also add here, sorry, Amelia,
No, go for it, Gabby.
Is that it's totally okay to ask about what's going to happen next. Like, I think a lot of students hold back on that, but it's okay. You are entitled to know when you might hear back or when you're going to get either an email or a phone call from someone. So definitely feel free to ask them really what their timeline is. If they're looking to maybe fill their spots of their graduate program by next week, or they're looking to fill that internship in the next month, it's something to keep in mind. That way you're aware if you're doing, hopefully multiple interviews at one time.
That was exactly my point. That's a great way to wrap it up. So, that was a lot of tips, but obviously there's so much more that we can go into with interviews, including specific questions that might make you feel nervous, or how do you craft your answers? And as always, the CAPS office, the Center for Academic and Professional Success, we're here to help you out. We can do mock interviews for you. We could do interview prep appointments. Maybe before doing a mock, you just want to sit down with an advisor and talk through your answers and the types of questions you might see. But we can also help you with your resume, your cover letter, your personal statement, graduate school planning, career exploration, or if you're missing some experiences you know you're going to need, shadowing, internships, research, we can also help you identify those. To schedule an appointment, you can go to Navigate, or you can call our front desk, 954-262-7990. We have advisors and others on hand to really support you and help you reach your career goals. And our Wake Up Real Sharks is just one avenue where we share our information and share our insights with you as students. I have a question. Is there some way I can access the PowerPoint just in case I want to refer back to it? Absolutely sure. We could definitely send it to you. Also, this entire presentation is going to be added to our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and you look for Center for Academic or Professional Success or CAPS, you'll find this entire presentation. So you'll see the PowerPoint, but you'll also see us talking through the slides.
Oh, thank you, Alejandro. That's so sweet of you. Yeah, so Alejandro's saying our mock interviews are amazing. And those are actually some of my favorite appointments. So if you have not come in for mock interview, definitely come on in. Or we could do Zoom too.
And you want to check your student email all the time because there's always events going on that are going to help you either prepare for an interview, prepare for graduate school, whether it's research, internship. For example, next week we have a mock interview event coming up, and there will be actual faculty and staff and even some students that are in these professional medical schools. So you're able to really get that full feeling of questions that they're being asked, and then they'll give you feedback on that after. So really go through all the events and all the emails that you're getting because it might benefit you.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions we could answer before we wrap up for today? Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our experts for always taking time and sharing their insights to our students. And as always, stay tuned for our next Wake Up Real Sharks. We have one every month, and we have a few planned that we'll be interviewing professionals in the field. So, and if you want to look at any of our others, again, we always have all of these recordings listed on our YouTube. And if you send me your email on the chat box, I'll be sure to get you this PowerPoint to you today.
Thank you all.